Okay, welcome everyone as we get underway here on a beautiful Monday evening, and we are sponsored by A.B. Spry for Nachas Manol family, by the Fogel family, Lili Nishmas, Rabbi Yaakov Zeb and Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, Mar Srivka Bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Mar Tzivya Miriam Bas Rav God, Rav Yosef ben Tzion ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev. We're sponsored by Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther Bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyen, by Yaakov Yamansky for the Rav and the Zoom family and Nachas from his children and grandchildren, by Ed Saleh from London and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We learned for our Chavar Adaf, Shimon Yehuda ben Gittel. He should have a refuah shalem and b'sech shachar Yisrael. We are holding now in the last piece of the sugya, all the way on the top of Yud Gimel Amid Aleph, all the way on the top of Yud Gimel Amid Aleph, and we welcome in Aaron Swade. Wow, we look at the Agudas Yisrael of Fairway there. We thank Michal Avram for setting up the camera. We welcome in Rich Lenner and Berish Gesseman. Anybody else there that I'm missing? No. And Avram Shenkman. Avram Shenkman, that's a big person. Great to have you. We welcome in Yisrael Meir Kaplan. It's great to have you. Irving Fishbaum, Baruch Ian. And look at this. He was missing last night, Eddie Chazan. Eddie, we missed you last night. You were probably, a rare time you were probably traveling. Shalom Fogel, Mo Kushner, it's great to have you. And Menachem Yamansky, Yitzi Fuchs, back online. Yisrael Fisher from Tannersville, Saba, Shelley Zeitlin, Dr. Black, Chaim Kramer, Nachman Chapler, Ruve Pollock, Moshe Lehman, Yitzi Muller, Rabbi Kranz, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach, David Helfgott on Kololoshin. Okay, so now we have a very interesting case. The picture looks scary. It's really not scary. But what happened over here is two brothers inherited a field. And this field, not all sides of the field are equal. Because Chad Gisa Nagra, one side of the field, the southern side of the field, it has a good irrigation canal running by it. The Chad Gisa, and one side of the field, Nara, has even better, has a river water source. So now the question is, how do we divide it? We can't split it in half in the conventional manner. Because if, let's say, we split it going from north to south, let's say we split it going from north to south, then if Reuven gets the upper part, then he gets the whole side next to the river and half of a side next to the canal, while Shimon gets nothing near the river and only half of the canal. So that's not fair. Likewise, if we would divide it from east to west in half, so that wouldn't be good either, because then if let's say Reuven gets the left side, so he gets the whole side next to the canal and half next to the river, while Shimon will only get one half next to the river. So none of these ways are a fair division. So what do? Palgin la bekarna zul. Now that's a strange word. Karna zul means we go, zul means to go, and karna is from the corners. We draw a line from the corners. So what we do is we divide the field into four quarters, 4 quadrants. And then we take each quadrant, each quarter, and we make a line from the corners, essentially cutting it into eighths. So by cutting it into eighths, everybody gets a fair share. So Reuven gets 1/8 next to the canal, and Shimon, Reish and Shin on the Gemara stands for Reuven and Shimon. So Reuven gets 1/8 next to the canal, and Shimon gets 1/8 next to the canal. Shimon gets 1/8 next to the river, and Reuven gets 1/8 next to the river. So by cutting it up in this way into eighths, everybody gets their fair share equal next to the river and next to the canal. That's the way the Gemara does things. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro. Now, says the Gemara, v'lo yes hatraklin, we will not divide a meeting room. If, let's say, Eddie and Shelley want to divide a meeting room, we said that they don't divide it unless there's enough there that when they divide it, each part that they get is still big enough to serve its function as a meeting room. What happens if it's not enough for both of them? But Shelley, I mean, you can't blame Shelley. Shelley is a little bit tired of being stuck with Eddie. I mean, Shelley does, he's a nice guy, but you know, he's had a little bit of, he's had a little bit too much of the grasshopper. You know what if you know what I mean. So, what's the din? Rav Yehuda says, is Dina the good or oged? Rav Yehuda says Shelley could say to Eddie, either cut a price and purchase it, or I'll cut a price and I'll purchase it. In other words, he could force Eddie's hand. You know, either you offer a price and, you know, you buy it, buy me out, or I'll offer a price and I'll buy you out. Rav Nachman disagrees. Rav Nachman says that Shelley can't force, you know, the bottom line is Eddie might not have cash to buy him out, but Eddie wants to have at least a small meeting room. So Rav Nachman Amar, less Dina the good ayagid. Shelley can't force the issue at hand. So Amalei Rav Nachman, so Rav asks Rav Nachman, Lidi Dach, according to you, the Amrit less Dina the good ayagid, according to you that we don't know good ayagid, that you know you can't force a division. B'charu pashit shaniach lohem aviem eved or behema tameya. If there's a firstborn that gets a double portion, and a regular son that gets only one portion, that the father left them either a slave or let's say a behema tameya, let's say a horse. So obviously that's not something that you could divide. Can't divide a slave, can't cut him up. You can't divide a horse. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you know, the Bechar could say either, you know, buy me out or I'll buy you out. But according to Rav Nachman, Kate said, and what do you do? So Rav Nachman says, there's no problem. The Pashut, the regular son that gets one portion, the Eved or the horse works one day, and the Bechar gets 2 days. You know, and that's all. That's what they do. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, Misha Chetzi Eved v'Chetzi ben Chayrin. What happened over here is Eddie and Shelley owed a slave called Tony. And Shelley, being a real nice guy, he freed Tony. So now Tony is a half slave, half free man, because the part that Shelley freed, now he's when you free an Eved Kanani, he becomes a regular Yid. So now he's Matisyo / Tony. So Misha Chetzi Eved v'Chetzi ben Chayrin, it's the opinion of Beis Hillel, no problem. Oived es Rabbi Yom Echad, he works for Eddie on the even days, and he works for himself on the odd days. Right? So on the even days, he works for Eddie because he's owned halfway by Eddie. He's still an Eved Kanani. And on the odd days, he works for himself. Divrei Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says, it's very nice that you took care of Eddie. But why is everybody just worried about Eddie? Okay, so Eddie gets his work out of David Kanani. But who is this poor Tony / Mordechai going to marry? Beis Shammai tikantem es Rabba. You took care of Eddie. But es atzmai like tikantem. But you didn't take care of poor Mordechai / Tony. Lisa Shifcha Eina Yochel, he can't marry a Shifcha Kananis because of his Mordechai part. Lisa Bas Chayrin Eina Yochel, he can't marry a Beis Yaakov girl because of his Tony part. Yiftel, he shouldn't, so say, okay, this guy will be a bachelor. Oh no. The world was only created for procreation. The world was not created for voidness. It was created to be populated. Ela Kaifin es Rabbi, we force Eddie, the Eisin Isai ben Chayrin, and he frees his half, making him fully Mordechai, so he should be able to marry a Beis Yaakov girl. And this Eved will owe Eddie for half of his value. The Kaisvin Shtar, and he writes a promissory note to Eddie al Katzi Damav. The Chazu Beis Hillel, and this is one of the cases in Shas, where Beis Hillel retracted, that we force Eddie to free his part. So here we see, but if it wouldn't be a problem of who this slave could marry, we would have no problem doing like Rav Nachman and saying that he should work for Eddie on the even days and work for himself on the odd days. So says the Gemara, you know why? Because here it's not possible to say good or ogud. Shani hocha the ogud ika. The slave could say, I'll cut a price for myself, because he could buy his freedom. But good leka. But he can't say either you cut a price or I'll cut a price, because he can't say that Eddie should cut a price to buy him, because you can't buy a free man. So here, good ayagid is not possible. Tajma, Shnei Achin, two brothers, Echad Ani ve'Echad Asher, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven has money, and Shimon is a pauper. V'aniach lehem aviyem merchatz ubeis abad, and the father left them a bathhouse and an olive press. So osan l'schar, if its usage was as a rental, so then haschar lemtza. So then it works out very good. Neither of the brother is a firstborn. There was a girl born first. Neither of them is a firstborn. So then Reuben and Shimon split the rental. Osan la'atzmai, but if the father used it for private, personal use, Hari Osher Aimer la'ani, Reuven, the wealthy person, could tell Shimon, look, you bring kachloch avadim, bring servants, v'yirchatzu b'merchatz, and get the servants to warm up the bathhouse and bathe in the bathhouse. And kachloch zeisim, and get olives, and Bava Basra Daf. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why don't you say over here, good or good? Why can't the poor one say either you cut a price or I'll cut a price? So the Gemara answers simply, Hasam Nami, good Ika. He could tell the rich man, you cut a price, but Ogud Leka, he can't say, or I'll cut a price, because the poor man can't buy it. So he can't offer that option. Tajma, we learned in the Mishnah, Kol She'ilu Yechalek, where if you divide the cloak, Ushmayalav, there'll be left two little cloaks. Or if you divide the meeting room, it'll be two good meeting rooms, Chalkin. Imla, but if not, if not, then he makes it up with money, which means that either he could say, you buy me out or I'll buy you out. So you see that our Mishnah holds that you could say either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. So the Gemara says, you're right, Tanoihi, it's a machlokes Tanoim. Titania, Tel Atoshir, if let's say, remember we said you can't force them to divide unless there's enough, let's say, in a field, 9 kavim for each one. Now let's say instead of there being a total of 18 kavim, there was only 16 kavim. So if, let's say, Shelley says to Eddie, Tolat Ashir, you take the 9 kavim, and I'll take 7 kavim. Tolat Ashir, va'ani pochis. So that's a very, that's a completely acceptable claim. The reason why not to divide is because they don't want to get less than what's usable. But if Shelley says to Eddie, look, I'll give you the 9, and I'll take only 7, right? The Tolat Ashir v'ani pochis shaymelai. Shimon Gamliel says, ain't shaymelai. Eddie could still refuse to divide. Now, heichidami, ilay mekiditani, that Eddie is getting the full 9 kav. My time in Reb Shimon Gamliel, why could Eddie stop it? Why could Eddie stop it? The whole reason is because he doesn't want to get less than what's usable. But if there's 9 kav for him, and Shelley is ready to take less than what's usable, so then why should Reb Shimon Gamliel not allow that? Elalav, it must be chesrei mechzera. It must be that something is deficient over here. V'achi kamer. Teilat asher, you take the 9 kav, ani pachas, and I'll take the smaller amount. Shaymelai. Now, the Tanakama says, v'gudai agid nami shaymelai. And he also holds that Shelley could tell Eddie, either you cut a price and buy it, or I'll cut a price and buy it. V'aser Shimon Gamliel ain't shaymelai. So you see that good ayagid is a machlokes. As you know, that if there's, instead of there being 18 kav with 9 kav for both, there's only 16 kav. But Shelley tells Eddie, you take the 9 kav, and I'll take only the 7. And we said that Rav Shimon Gamliel says you can't do that. Eddie could stop. So the question is, my time to Rav Shimon Gamliel, it's not that Eddie is being difficult. There's a reason to his madness. Mishum Damalei, he tells Shelley, if you want me to compensate you for me taking 9 and you taking 7, Leslie Demei Lameitalach. I don't have any money now to give you. You want to grant me the extra kavin as a matana? But matana loy nichali. I don't want to take a matana. The chsiv sayne matana yichya. A person that hates gifts will live. I don't want to take a matana. Amalei Abaye l'Rab Yosef. So now Abaye says to Rab Yosef, this is one of the easier dafim that we've had in a while. I have to stall a little bit because your wives won't know why you're home so early. They'll be suspicious that you really didn't go to the daf. So it's really nice.
Rabbi, I have a name, please, if you don't mind. I was just going to look at a shiva for someone who lives on Staten Island. Maybe you know David Drazen. Does anyone know a David Drazen?
Yes, I do. What's the name?
Mother has passed away. Her Hebrew name, well, I just looked at the shiva, was Chaya Nechama Bas Shmuel Laser. You don't mind including...
We'll learn for Chaya Nechama Bas Shmuel Laser. Her neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden.
Amen.
Now, we're missing Marshall, we're missing Mark. What's going on over here? We're missing Gedalia. Tell Gedalia that I missed him. I know where Gedalia is. He's on a mission of mercy. He's in Nova Scotia. He has a relative that's very ill. All right, this is a shout out to the Gedalia. He should have atzlacha with his mission of mercy. Says the Gemara that Amali Abayel Rabbi Yosef, Had Rabbi Yehuda, that which Rabbi Yehuda says that we say good oged, that Shelley could tell and force the deal with Eddie and say either you cut a deal and buy me out or I'll cut a deal and buy you out, the Shmuel he. It's the opinion of the great Shmuel, the Tanan, the Kisvei HaKodesh, holy scriptures, scrolls, Afal Pisha Shneim Reitzim, even though they both want to divide, Lo Yachloiku. It shouldn't be divided because, as we said, it's a gnai, it's a disgrace to a Torah scroll to split it in half. That's only if it's one scroll. But if it's two scrolls, cholken. Now, it says two scrolls over here. It could be a scroll of Torah and it could be a scroll of Nevi'im. Now, the Isal Kedaitach less Dina de Gudai Agad, if you don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that you could say either buy me out or I'll buy you out. My area bekerach echad. Why even one scroll? Afilu b'shnei krichin nami. Even two scrolls. Eddie will say, I don't want to divide. I need the Yeshua and I also need the Shmuel. I don't want to divide. So Tirgama Rav Shalman says if it's two scrolls, you could divide only b'shishnei and Reitzin when they're both in agreement. Amar Ameimer, so now Ameimer says, Hilchasa is dina de good ayagid. The halacha is, Shelley is going to be very happy to hear this. He could get Eddie once and for all out of his hair. Dina, the din is, Hilchasa is dina de good ayagid. So Shelley could say to if he only has a field that only has 16 kavan, he could say either, Eddie, you cut a price or I'll cut a price. Amalei Rav Ashi LaMeimer. So Rav Ashi said to Ameimer, what do you do with Rav Nachman's opinion? Rav Nachman was a great man. Had Rav Nachman my Amalei. What are you going to do with Rav Nachman's opinion? Had Rav Nachman my Amalei loy shmili. I didn't hear it. Meaning kalema loy svirili. I don't hold of Rav Nachman's opinion. Says the Gemara, but why? Rabba bar Chinana v'Rav Dimi bar Chinana. Rabba bar Chinana and Rav Dimi bar Chinana Shabbat lu avua tarte amasa. Their father left them two maidservants. Chada yoda afya ubishule, one who had to bake and cook. V'chada yoda pilcha v'navla, and one who had to sew and to weave. V'asa the kami de Rava, and they came before Rava. V'amalahu, and he said to them, "Less dina de gudayogit." So you see, how could you say that we passing like Rabbi Yehuda? Here, Rava, who's the Basra, we always passing like, says less dina de gudayogit. Says the Gemara, no, over there, that's not what they wanted to do. Over there, what they wanted to do is the one, let's say that the one that cooked and baked was worth less than the one that knitted and wove. The one that knitted and wove was a real professional. It was like a parnasa. And they both needed both servants. Now, what they wanted to say is I'll take one and you take the other one, and either you take the more expensive one and compensate me, or I'll take the more expensive one and compensate you. So there, that Rava holds you're not allowed to do. Why? As the Gemara says, Shani Hasam to Lamar Mebayle Travayo, Lamar Mebayle Travayo. They both needed the services of both of them. Einochanami, one could have said, either you buy both of them or I'll buy both of them. That they could have said. In other words, either cut a price and take both of them, or I'll cut a price and take both of them. That they could have done, right? But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to say, either you take the better one and pay me for that, or I'll take the better one and pay you for that, that is not allowed. Where he says you take one and I'll take one, meaning and you either I'll take the better one and compensate for that, or you take the better one and compensate for that. Lav gudoyagadu. That's not standard gudoyagad. Says the Gemara. But kisvei hakodesh the travayu mebayalu. But the kisvei hakodesh where they both needed the Yeshua and the Shmuel. V'amar Shmuel leishanu ela bekerech echad. That you only don't divide it if it's one scroll, because it's a genaya of a b'shnei krachin cholkin. So you see, you do divide by two different scrolls. Says Gemara, no, that's different. There we said is where they wanted to divide. Where they wanted to divide. If they didn't want to divide, then you wouldn't be able to force them to divide and make up for the better one. That you wouldn't be able to do. Tan Rabbanan, here's an interesting question. Could you put together Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, make a Torah out of all 24 books of Tanakh? Now, of course, we don't do that. We only have the Torah of Chamisha Chumshei Torah. But could you make one big, like we have many shuls lane from a Tanakh, which contains Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim? Can you make a scroll with the entire Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim? So Rameya says you could. You could make a big scroll with Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Divrei Rameya. That's the position of Rameya. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't do that. Rather, Torah, you have to do Torah separately. Torah b'fnei atzman, that's the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Nevi'im b'fnei atzman, Navi by itself, that's Navi is the 8 Nevi'im Rishonim, which is Yeshua, Shoftim, Shmuel, Malachim, Yirmiyahu, Yecheskel, Yeshayahu, and Trei Aser. Trei Aser contains the 12 minor prophets. And then Ksuvim b'fnei atzman. The Ksuvim is Tilim, Mishlei, Eiv, Shir Hashirim, the 5 Megillah, Shir Hashirim, Ruz, Eicha, Kehelis, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Divrei Hayamim, and Chronicles. The Chachamim say you can't bunch all the Nevi'im together and the Ksuvim together. Rather, Kol Echad b'fnei atzma. Each one by itself, Yeshua by itself, Shmuel by itself, etc. Vam Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'isa bebitos ben Zainin, Shahaya lo Shmoina Nevi'im medubakim ke'echad. He had the 8 early prophets attached in one scroll, Al Pi Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The Chachamim, and the Chachamim say, Lo haya lo ela echad b'fnei atzmai. Bitus ben Zainin didn't have all 8 together, they were separate. Amar Rebbe, Ma'isa ve'eviu lefaneinu Torah Nevi'im u'Ksuvim medubakim ke'echad. They brought a Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim all in one, like the sheet of Rameir, v'chsharnan, and we okayed it. Now, when you have in the Torah the space between Bereshis and Shmos, bein Chumash l'Chumash shel Torah, arba shitim. There should be 4 blank lines. Or bein kol Navi l'Navi, according to the shita that you could put the Nevi'im, all 8 Nevi'im in one. The chen bein kol Navi l'Navi, in between each Navi, there should be 4 lines. Or Navi shel Shneim Aser, which is small, Shneim Aser consists of Hosea, Yoel, Ovadia, Yonah, Micha, Nachum, Chavakuk, Tzfanya, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. That makes up Trei Aser. Now, Trei Aser is very short. Each Navi is very short, and therefore it's enough Gimel Shitim, 3 blank lines between each Navi. But if it finishes on the bottom of the page, then you don't need any blank lines on the top of the next column. Or Maskil Mamali, you can start right away from the top of the next column. Okay, we're going to stop over here, Rabbi Isai. We did it under 30 minutes. That's